Today we have Derek Pryor with us for this interview session. And before I introduce Derek, would you like to tell us about yourself?
Certainly. Well, thank you very much. It's great to meet you, Faraz. And yeah, it's a good idea because everybody's busy with SAP. So where do we all start in SAP? Is everybody's got an interesting story. So in my case, in 1991, I was a manager of an SAP R3 team here in the
Hmm.
UK. And we built up a very experienced team of applications and technologists focusing on R3, which used to run on Unix, as I'm sure you remember, in its
Yeah, yeah.
early days. Um, and we've seen R3 emerge as the leading open system-based open systems vendor, SAP, with R3, established themselves as the ERP market lead beyond any question because of the partnership, the scalability, and the sophistication of R3. And in the
Hmm.
90s, I had a very experienced SAP Competence Center team at HP here in the UK. And I'm pleased to say that around about 95, 96, we picked up about 70% market share of all UK customers going R3 because we tried hard to look at the complexities of the application and to couple that with understanding how the technology platform works. And my team did all the sizing, scoping R3 projects. So I did that until 1998. And then I was asked to join Gartner here in the UK
Yeah.
to join the ERP team. And whilst Gartner's famous for ERP, Magic Quadrants and hype cycles and many other leading elements of research, I focused on the very customer-based issues, like how do you become self-sufficient in SAP? How do you operate solution manager? How do you get more value out of SAP? It used to really excite me. Frankly, it still
Hmm.
does. So I
Hmm.
worked on all sorts of SAP-based research at Gartner. Um, I left Gartner in 2017 and joined in the same year Resulting IT, based in Warrington here in the UK. Why? Because they're a lovely company and they have the
Yeah.
same passions that I have in terms of let's help SAP customers become more self-sufficient and get more value out of SAP. Let's try and help them. So at
Yeah.
Resulting, we don't do very big implementation projects. We don't sell licenses, but what we're passionate about is helping understand what makes some SAP customers successful and others not, and to help them get more value out of SAP, and especially as they contemplate their journey towards S4 HANA.
Yes, correct. Very, very interesting to know your history about the different industries you've worked. In fact, I was with HP also in HP Singapore for 1 year. But just for one small project. But interesting to know that you've worked 17 years and I think you were one of the person who drove and the partnership between SAP and HP. Interesting. This interview, I was mainly trying to focus on the S4 HANA bit because it's in the news and everyone is talking about it. And with your experience, I wanted to understand, and also for the audience, what is exactly S4 HANA, and why would companies who've already invested so much in R3 applications would go for S4 HANA? What's that? What's the factor that the companies will invest in S4 HANA?
Great, great. This is the number one question for us. But guess what? It's been the number one question for the last 4 years.
Yes, correct.
And I think because it's been the number one question, people need a good answer. I'm sure you'll agree with me. People want a good answer because, as you rightly point out, you used the word investment. And
Yes.
once you become an SAP investment, as SAP customer, usually you're joining SAP customer base because of ERP. Would you agree?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And of course, ERP keeps moving, and in some IT journals, ERP seem to be old and boring, and artificial intelligence and the internet are exciting. Well, they are exciting, but from a business point of view, ERP is still part of the backbone of a business, and it
Mhm.
doesn't go away. Now, So what? Well, what's really happened is we've got, SAP and ERP has kept moving. The SAP did a great job in bringing R3 into the
Yes.
internet age with, as you know, the Business Suite and ECC6, the most widely installed ERP solution across all industries. And the thing is, ECC, let's face it, it's covered itself in glory. Okay, from time to time we read horror stories of projects that have gone wrong, but typically it's running small businesses and very large businesses, the business backbone, and people have to incorporate it and get more value out of ECC6.
Yeah.
Now, if we go back to 2010, of course, this is when Hasso Plattner came up with a new groundbreaking technology in the form of HANA as an in-memory database. We at Gartner, I think, properly positioned this as an HTAP, a hybrid technology, sorry, a hybrid transaction and analytical processing platform. And because of the power of it, SAP decided that whereas in the 90s that we started talking about, choice of database was paramount, SAP development believed that the HANA database is so powerful that it's so many miles ahead of any other database technology, and it makes sense to focus on that. And to be fair to SAP also, if you run your ERP on the HANA in-memory database, new things become possible that were probably unthought of 10 years ago. So, for example, what if you could use that HANA technology to not only make your system run faster, to incredibly streamline end-of-month processing, which is normally a real nightmare, but also to enable you to do things in real time that used to have to wait hours, or certainly minutes, but hours or days. And so with
is there any example that you can give for the real time? Because people do talk about the HANA brings in some real time benefits. Is there anything that you can?
Yeah, there's lots of, very often an obvious benefit to look at is something like if you're a manufacturer, you're running MRP, an MRP run will run in a matter of minutes, and compared to when it used to be so slow that you had to run it overnight, you can now run MRP in minutes and get a much faster updated picture of what's happening on your factory floor. Also, just what if you could do things that you couldn't do before? Imagine you could run a report and get a real-time valuation of all of your stock, all of your work in progress, all of your finished goods. If you wanted to be able to track how products move across your supply chain and your manufacturing floor, you can use that insight to go back to your customers and say, you know what, I know how I can get this product to you in a way that I couldn't commit to deliver it to you before. So that sort of real-time insight is what makes possible things like real-time valuations and tracking across the supply chain, and coming up with new, it means you can link your ERP back to your front office and come up with new value propositions that you know that you're going to be able to fulfill in the future. Because no point taking an order and promising that you can deliver that product within 5 days if you can't. And there's too many cases where people have not used ERP properly. So ERP then can be revolutionized, but you never get something for nothing, I'm afraid.
Yeah, and I was also myself part of some developing some of the Fiori applications. So I was reading that SAP HANA, unless you use SAP HANA, you can't get certain type of analytical apps through Fiori, which only is possible if you run on HANA database. Is that true?
Yes. Yes, well, well, don't forget, it's more fundamental than that. SAP have effectively stopped development of ECC6 on traditional databases.
Yes.
So To be honest with you, ECC6 was good at transaction processing and managing logistics and finance and supply chains, but it wasn't very good at giving reports, which is why BW was invented in the first place.
Yes.
So one of the potential benefits with HANA is you could, under some circumstances, say, I don't need a BW system anymore because I've got it all in one clever system.
Mm-hmm. And people talk about in-memory database. What exactly is in-memory? Is it like it is a RAM where you store all the information and that is why it is quick? Or do you have more information about why do we call it as in-memory database all the time?
Yes, if you go back to the days of R3 and you had an Oracle database, I would say more than probably, well, the database lived on disk. So every time you wanted to access some customer records within your R3 system, you had to go off the disk and fetch the data. And that is inherently very slow. And because it's so slow, R3 had to be developed in such a way that it had special tables to overcome this slow access of summary data. It had aggregate tables that were trying to make it, it was a workaround. Now with HANA, if you say, well, I don't need to keep my huge ERP database on disk. I can load it once into my main memory, random access memory. Once I've got all my data in memory, every time I need to access anything, I can go immediately to what I need. I can go to tables containing finance and manufacturing data immediately. It's so much faster. And because of that, because it's so much faster, it allows you to run your processes in a more streamlined way. Now, this is the theory. Okay, this is the theory. And there have been examples of early adopters. There have been some early adopters that have upgraded to HANA and have said that they can run MRP in a matter of minutes. They can hugely streamline. They can cut days off the end of month processing. But this is first level benefit.
Yeah, because if you run faster, you get some indirect benefit. You know your stocks real time. You can make faster decisions. You can make right decisions with everything happening real time. Because if you run MRP and it take hours, and then when you get the information about the stock, it's actually already late. So you can end up making some wrong decision about the stocks. But it's good. So. Now we understand the benefits of SAP S4 HANA. Just wanted to quickly touch about the deployment and how easy is the transition from ECC to S4 HANA. Have you experienced?
I've been talking to customers about this for the last 4 years, and initially SAP did SAP developed a two-step approach. Step one was just replace your Oracle database on disk with a HANA database in memory, and you get some initial benefits. And that is a very technical upgrade. It's not disruptive. You can do that at step one, and then step two is to convert the data structures to be S4 based. S4's got very different data structures to ECC. So you could take that two-step approach, and initially that made a lot of sense, especially if you had a very large database. If your database is, let's say, 10, 20, 30, 40 terabytes, then you have to worry about practical operational limits of, if I'm going to do a conversion within the upgrade project, how much downtime will that take? Can I do the upgrade incurring no more than a weekend of downtime? If you do your test runs and you realize you're going to need 4 days of downtime, can you imagine how a business would push back and say, no, we can't do that. That's disruptive. Now, but today, SAP does not talk about that step one. SAP encourages customers, I think rightly, to go directly from the old system, ECC6, to a HANA database running in main memory and converts your old data that you're taking with you into the new S4 data structure. The only problem is that sounds like a good approach, but there are some practical constraints here because, again, you have to worry about your downtime.
Hmm.
You have to be careful if if downtime is more going to be more than a weekend. And secondly, the thing that's easy to overlook is that if you're an existing customer and you're used to running ECC6 on Oracle, your
Hmm.
business users have been using it day in, day out. The
Yes,
end
correct.
users are used to it. The super users are used to it. Along comes something nicer. S4
Mhm.
HANA is nicer. It's got nicer Fiori user
Yeah.
interfaces. It's easier to use. You can have simpler processes. The problem is because it's so different, your end users have to have time, and the business process owners especially have to have time to get to grips with it. They have to
Yeah.
understand how the new beast works. It's
Yes.
different. It's
Yeah.
better, but it's different. And that all of that adds up to meaning it's quite disruptive for a business. Now, SAP will have us believe, no, it's not disruptive at all. It's all straightforward. Lots of people have done it. Well, the fact is, it's sufficiently different to be disruptive to a business. So if you're a busy business, and all are, you have to choose what's the best time for you to upgrade. And that's
Yeah.
going to be driven by your business and how busy you are in various months of the year. Chances are in
Mm.
some months in different industries, you have more slack time, and that's probably best time to actually complete the project. But on top of that, if you're going to make this transition to S4 HANA, and SAP are saying, not if, you have to, 2025, support for the old databases go away.
Hmm.
SAP is saying you have to go
Yeah.
to S4 HANA, running on the HANA database, and there is no choice. Then that means you've actually got to get your checkbook out and spend a lot of money in the project. For
Yeah.
starters, you need new hardware. Okay,
Yeah.
you could choose to say, well, I'll run that in a cloud, and that may or
Mm.
may not be cheaper. It's possible. Okay, that's a separate discussion, a huge discussion, I would admit. We'll put that to one side. But it costs a lot of money. And therefore, very often many customers have to put together a business case to justify spending the money in that upgrade. And
Yeah.
frankly, if you've got an ECC system today and you've spent years tuning
Mm.
it and tuning it and making it
Yes.
better,
Yes.
if you, how are you going to justify saving significant amounts of money to
Mm.
do the S4 HANA upgrade project?
Yeah. Yeah.
For many customers, that is a huge issue.
Yes.
So I mentioned the first issue, which is doing the upgrade project and managing the downtime and fitting it into your business seasonality. Secondly, you've got this business case. If you're a small company, it's less of an issue with respect to downtime. If
Mm.
you're a big company, and SAP have got such a huge installed base of very large companies that they have to be very careful when they do that. If you're the CIO of one of these large companies, you're going to ask, where are the companies, the big companies that have been there, done it? And I want to see the lessons learned, because I don't really want to be one of the first big companies. So that's the third factor, referenceability. So in
Yeah.
summary, factor number one was impact on my business. Factor number two is how much is it going to cost me, and is there a business justification for this? Factor number three is, if I'm a large company, show me the references.
Yeah.
All of those things hold people back.
Yes, correct. I think you mentioned about disruption. Also, since there is a consumerization of IT, which means that people are so much used to use the smartphone and apps like Facebook, LinkedIn, and other apps. So, and if the same user is asked to use Fury, he will be more comfortable using it than the existing old ECC based screens. So that is one of the advantages. I think that is one of the also selling points for SAP, and that is why also they are changing and going ahead with the time, understanding the user adoption, if I would say.
No, you're right. I
Yeah.
agree with you completely, Faraz. The fact is, S4's got a lot of good things going for it,
Mm.
and we have to have a balanced analysis here. The usability with Fury is better. The
Mm.
integration with smartphone technology is better. The integration with potential new technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning. If you need to do anything digital transformation, yeah, S4 is the platform you need, but those three basic issues that I summarized for you just now, they don't go away.
Yeah, and also I was reading that SAP S4 HANA can be implemented on premise
Yes?
and also on cloud. And under cloud, there are private clouds and public cloud.
Yeah.
So it is. Can you tell us what is the drawbacks in each of them? Like, for example, if it's a large scale organization, would they rather go for on premise, or they can still have a private cloud solution, and what is the advantage of using cloud?
Okay. Again, this is the second. S4 HANA was question number 1 when I was at Gartner that I got my phone rang the most for. You've just raised question number 2 very neatly. Thank you very much, Raz. But seriously, if you look at S4 HANA as a product, there are 2 fundamentally different versions. There is S4 HANA on-premise and S4 HANA Cloud. S4 HANA Cloud can only run in a shared public cloud, and it can't be customized and controlled by the customer. It's done by the SaaS vendor, in this case SAP.
Okay.
That's the difference. Now, coming back to S4 HANA on-premise, the fact that it's called on-premise doesn't mean you can't park that in a private cloud or a public cloud. So So you could run that in your own data center if you want to. And why would you do that? Because your ERP is so mission critical to you, you cannot afford an hour of downtime. There are customers that have their digital ERP backbone so mission critical, they can't afford any downtime. And ECC runs like this without downtime. Those are the sorts of customers which will say, okay, I know the world's going cloud, I'll worry about that later. I have my ERP system so mission critical, I have to tightly control it. It's got hundreds of interfaces, it's got custom programs which I have to have control all of that, and fundamentally I have to control the ERP application configuration. Now then, you can say, well, hang on a minute, you can still have your ECC or your S4 HANA system controlled at the application table level, and you can do what you want with the application, but it can still be run in a managed private cloud.
Okay.
So one of the hardware vendors could say, look, you, Mr. Customer, worry about the application. We'll worry about the technology, and we'll run the systems for you at the basis level. In other words, the SAP operations level basis. And we can run these systems because we've got all sorts of highly resilient dual data centers. We've got very experienced basis staff, and we've got automation tools, which means we can do a first-class job for you. Okay? That's option number 2. But you could still take the on-premise version and run it on Amazon Web Services or Microsoft Azure. If you feel that these 2 public vendors will give you a better bang for your buck for the cost of the hardware, you could do that. The big but is
security. I mean, if you're doing on cloud, then the security element comes into the discussion, and then we have to consider that as well, no?
Yeah, that's a separate discussion. You have to dig right into all of the security requirements. And in some countries, for example, Germany, that we all know that's much more stringent in terms of where data lives, where the data centers are located, is a big issue. And we can understand that. But the other factor with the public cloud version, with the on-premise edition, is neither Amazon Web Services nor Microsoft Azure or Google Cloud, as it's coming along as well. They don't have the basis operations. You've just got infrastructure as a service, as it's called. You haven't got basis. You have to find a separate source of the basis operational expertise. Now, some of the partners here in the UK will say that's not a problem. We're good at basis. Amazon Web Services have got the most cost-effective SAP hardware. Put the 2 together, and we can give you control. That sounds like a very good argument. The only problem that we've been coming across is that whilst there's a huge expectation that cloud, either private or public, is going to be cheaper, it isn't always.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have to, like you rightly put your finger on security. You
Mm.
also have to do your own individual detailed cost comparison, looking at things like what happens if my business grows by 20 or 50%, how much would it
Mm.
cost me and in that scenario? Because there are all sorts of stories that I've come across as an analyst that sometimes it turns out to be more expensive than you think.
Okay, okay, interesting. So just in the interest of time, I think we have 5 more minutes. I have one or two more questions. We've discussed quite in detail about S4HANA, and I think the audience will like it. The other thing I wanted to ask was, SAP has been a leading ERP provider for ages. Since it started, it has been the leader in ERP, I would say. So with S4 HANA and the other competitors like Salesforce and Oracle, do you think it will continue to retain its leadership?
I think good question, because cloud is changing everything. Let's face it,
Yeah.
all new applications now, they aren't developed on premise anymore. They're all
Mm,
developed on the cloud because the cloud is a better delivery model. It's more flexible. But from a business point of view, some things don't go away. Okay, so if you go cloud at the application level, you
mm,
don't need so much application knowledge on site within the customer, but you still need people that are expert in the business process. You still need super users. There are things which the customer has to do, because if you don't have those skills, what happens when there's a new version of the application released? Well, I'll tell you what happens. Testing is the horrible T word that rears its
mm.
head. You have to do your own testing, and the customer's responsible at the end of the day for their business processes. So cloud changes everything. New applications, yes, they're all going cloud. SAP has resorted to buying other cloud vendors outside of ERP. We all know that the Arebas, the Success Factors, and the many others, Qualtrics, the latest one, yes, they're cloud software as a service vendors. And SAP has been able to just buy them.
Yeah.
So this is, why are
Yeah,
they doing this?
SAP is
Because the
good.
world's
Yeah. If
because the world's going cloud, and Wall
yeah.
Street wants to see how much of your revenue is cloud revenue. But if we go back to ERP for 1 second, if ERP is a critical application, needs lots of interfaces, and has some individual configuration requirements at the customer, it's going to take time before ERP is handled in a full software as a service level.
Yeah.
So because of that, SAP has got a big job. It's to be honest with you, it's finding it hard to persuade installed base customers to upgrade to
Mm.
S4 HANA.
Yes, yes,
There,
yes, I've heard.
there's something like about 9 or 10,000 sales of S4 HANA, but only
Mm.
about 3,000 customers of that number are actually live. And 40% of those 40% of those are small net new customers.
And whoever is
Hmm.
using it, are they happy with S4HANA? Do you have any idea?
I think those that use it are very happy with it.
Mm. So since you've touched this point, I was just thinking that how, for example, if a company is using all the modules, sales and distribution, finance, purchase, and all the other modules as well, and if they decide to go for S4HANA, can they go in phases, like just use simple finance and then invest in that, and then after 2 years do the simple logistics? Is it a possibility, or they have to, once they change the database, they have to go big bang?
They have to go big bang, really. It's
Okay.
possible you could just do a centralized finance implementation,
Okay.
and that's more likely, I would suggest, if you're a very large company and you've got multiple systems and you can't justify a big bang approach. But things are changing because of the difficulties I touched upon earlier. Customers for S4 HANA used to be in two flavors. If you're an install-based customer, you could either say, well, I have to take my interfaces, my custom code, and my data, my historical data with me, because it's too critical to me, in which case we would call that a brownfield
Hmm.
migration. And there are ways you can simplify this. There's all sorts of best practices for cleaning up your code, cleaning up your data, simplifying. I can talk forever about what's best practice to get there. Or some customers, install-based customers, are saying, no, we're in such a mess, we're going to go greenfield, meaning we're not going to take our existing interfaces, historical data and custom code with us. We're going to start again from scratch. You might do that if your industry has moved so much and you're so far behind and you're above all too over customized. You might go greenfield. Now then, recently we've seen a third approach called, some people have called it the bluefield approach. It's kind of a halfway house between greenfield and brownfield. And it says, well, with brownfield, you're going big bang, and we worry about impact on the business and downtime and so forth, and doing it all in one go. With the bluefield approach, you take more of a phased, gradual approach, and you gradually convert your configuration data and your historical data. That is a new approach which has emerged over the last year, and that's starting to get quite a lot of interest as well as a more pragmatic, gradual approach to handling the transition challenge.
Yes. So, Derek, it was very interesting, and I think we've touched most of the key elements within the S4 HANA, and it was very interesting to talk to you and touch those bits. And also very pleased to know what you've done in the past and your work on the air pollution featuring real-time computing as well, which we couldn't discuss today, but I think maybe in the next interview we'll touch mainly on those areas where you're working and benefiting the businesses. So thanks a lot, and any final words from your side?
Yeah, final words are resulting. We've developed some new techniques to make S4 transitions easier by having nicer, simpler, more effective tools for working out business value and blueprinting. And secondly, I'd love to talk to you about that air pollution and sustainability, because I mean, the planet's facing, we all know, such a huge challenge. And my Ph.D. was in '76. I've always been passionate about that. And I see this is a way for us here in the UK to take a lead and to make a lot of money by generating new business.
Yeah, and I think UK is one of the leading countries who are thinking towards the climate change and doing things for it. So, so I think we'll have another round of interviews sometime later.
Great. Well, I really enjoyed talking to you.
Thanks, Derek. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot. Cheers. Bye.